Hello, everybody. It's the film Optimist. Today I'm talking about the butterfly effect. Oh man, what a fucked film. I was 12 when I saw this movie and it freaked me out. Evan Treborn, I think it's Treborn, played by Ashton Kutcher, suffers blackouts and he has a journal he writes in to remember these forgotten memories. Later in college, he reads his journal to a girl and finds out he can travel back to these blacked out points in time and remember, even change the events that have transpired. It makes for an interesting plot, and there's so many things that go wrong and go right. It's a great experience to view this flick. I highly recommend it. Thanks go to Austin Van Alst for requesting this film. My brother. Um, yeah, we saw this in theaters with my mom. My mom took me to a lot of fucked up movies. Took us to a lot of fucked up movies. Uh, yeah, The Butterfly Effect is not a good movie, but it's fine. Yeah, there's so many different. Okay, so sometime later, while entertaining a girl in his college dorm room, he discovers he can time travel. After a traumatized Kaylee, so okay, Evan Treborn and his friends Lenny Kagan and Kaylee Miller and Kaylee's brother Tommy suffered many severe psychological traumas that frequently caused Evan to experience amnesia. These traumas include being forced to take part in CP by Kaylee and Tommy's father, George Miller, being nearly strangled to death by his institutionalized father, Jason Treborn, who is then killed in front of him by guards. I didn't know he was killed. Accidentally killing a mother and her infant daughter while playing with dynamite with his friends, and seeing his dog, Crockett, burned alive by Tommy. Evan keeps meticulous journals of his day to day life as a coping mechanism. Um, and he doesn't really read them, like, because he would have absolutely found out this superpower, this crazy thing. So years later, he goes and he's like, I want to go talk to Kaylee about these because he's reading and he's time traveling while he's reading all these things. So he's like, I need to go talk to Kaylee and see how she's been doing. And she works at a diner. Oh my God, hey Evan, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? And she's played by Amy Smart, um, the grown version. And he's like, hey, do you remember when we were kids? You remember all this stuff we used to do? Remember, what happened with that? You remember this? Remember? And she's like, I don't. She's like, yeah, that's such a long time ago. And he's like, you remember when we were like little kids? Remember? And she's like, why the fuck would you bring that up? And she flips the fuck out. And he's like, I'm sorry, I don't. And she's like, leave me alone. Like you shouldn't have come back. And she unalives herself. Very sad. Um, Evan, uh, there's Tommy. Tommy goes, calls, and he's like, I'm gonna kill you. Because Tommy's fucking crazy. Um, he travels back in time and warns George to never touch her ever again. He comes back to a reality where he and Kaylee are a happy couple in college. However, George took out his frustrations on Tommy, who grew up to be even more unhinged than he already was. Tommy eventually attacks Evan, who kills him in a fit of rage and is sent to prison. There, he manages to time travel once more after his mother brings him a journal during a visit. Yeah, so that's the preppy slash prison timeline. It's so fucking weird. Um, cause he's just kind of a normal dude. His roommate Ethan Suplee, played by Ethan Suplee, is Thumper is his name. He's this big, fat goth dude, and in the new timeline, Thumper does not like him at all. He's like, "Fuck you, you piece of shit, you poser, whatever, prep." Like, so talking to me. But they're cool beforehand. Now in this new timeline, no. Yeah, then he goes to prison. Um, upon his return, so he time travels again. Evan stops Tommy from killing his dog, but Lenny, who has been bullied by Tommy, become mentally unstable after the dynamite accident, kills Tommy with a metal shard. So like, this was shocking. I was like, he was like, he gives him a metal shard, and he's like, you'll know what to do when it comes time. Um, but then it goes, he actually talks Tommy out of killing the dog, talking down, like talking down to him, talking reasonably with him, and then as he like, here's the dog, there you go, he gets stabbed in the back by Lenny. Following Tommy's death, Evan wakes up in a new reality where Lenny has been institutionalized since then, and Kaylee has become a drug addicted prostitute. He then travels back to stop the woman and her daughter from being killed with a dynamite. And while Tommy shields the mother and baby from the blast, Evan is caught directly in the explosion. Yeah, that's a very sad timeline with Lenny, because Lenny is institutionalized. He's laying in the fucking um, psych ward and everything, strapped to a table because he'll flip the fuck out. No, actually, when he first meets him, he's at home, and he makes model airplanes and shit. I think that's what it is. Yeah, and then he gets what? No, wait, because there's was the college one. There's another timeline where Lenny's fucking crazy. It actually might be the first one. Actually, I don't fucking remember. But this one, he is definitely laying in a chair, on a table, strapped to a table, and he's like, "You should be here where I am." Who plays him? He's really good too. Eldon Henson, who played Foggy, right? Is his name? Foggy Nelson in Daredevil. Um, in the MCU. Kevin G. Schmidt played Lenny at 13. He's in Cheaper by the Dozen 1 and 2. The Young and the Restless. He's been in a bunch of shit. Yeah, John Patrick Amadori. I don't know who that is. Logan Lerman played Evan at 7. Hey, that rhymes. Evan at age 7. Melora Walters is Andrea. Um, William Lee Scott plays Tommy. Jesse James, Tommy at 13. Cameron Bright, Tommy at 7. I know him. He's been in a bunch of shit. Eric Stoltz as Mr. Miller. Fuck that guy. He's been in a lot of stuff. Not the actor, but the character. Callum Keith Rennie is Jason. That's Evan's dad. Lorena Gale is Mrs. Boswell, and Nathaniel DeVoe, Dr. Redfield, and Kevin Durand is Carlos. He's a Canadian actor. He's very much a white dude, right? Like, I don't know. He is of French Canadian descent. He plays a Hispanic dude. The fuck? Um. Yeah. So then he stops the. So what they do is they put dynamite in a mailbox, and they're like, "That's gonna be funny. It's gonna blow up the mailbox." But then a woman comes out, and she goes to check the mail, and they're like, "Oh, no, 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 no!" And then they like, she has a baby in her arms, and then, you know, and very traumatic. Um, that's what happens. Lenny is like traumatized by that shit. Like, just, I can't believe we did that. And in this timeline, he's like, I have to erase it. Evan loses both of his arms. They're now nubs. He's like this, and tries to unalive himself in the bathtub and everything like that. Um, in this new reality, Lenny and Kaylee are a happy couple, and Tommy has become religious. But Evan is a double amputee whose mother developed lung cancer after becoming a chain smoker from the grief of her son's injuries. To save his mother and himself from the new fate, Evan goes back to their childhood. There, Evan lights the dynamite and prepares to discard it, but Kaylee picks it up when it is smacked out of his hand by her father and it explodes, killing her. So, new timeline, Kaylee's dead. What does this timeline look like? He is just completely, in that timeline where he's a double amputee, he is so miserable, and everybody else around him is thriving, is doing so good. It's like, they're happy. Like, but yeah, you're not, and your mom's got cancer, so that sucks. But like, you are now to save yourself and your mom. Oh my god. Um, Evan wakes up in a mental hospital and finds that in this reality, the journals do not exist, and his brain has suffered irreversible damage due to the rigors of time travel. At one point, Evan has a conversation with a doctor who reveals that his father had the same abilities before losing the photographs that allowed him to time jump, causing everyone to believe him to be crazy. Evan ultimately reaches the conclusion that he and his friends will never have good futures as long as he keeps altering the past. After escaping the hospital staff and barricading himself in an office, Evan travels back one final time via the use of an old home movie to the day he first met Kaylee. He intentionally upsets her so that she and Tommy will choose to live with their mother in a different neighborhood instead of with their father when they divorce. As a result, they are not subjected to a destructive upbringing, do not grow up with Evan, Lenny is never bullied, and all go on to have happy, successful lives. Yeah, he tells her, he's like, if you ever, whatever, I'll kill you and your whole damn family or something like that. There's a lot of like moments of this film that really get me, that really like affect me. Um, and there's one line that cracks me up. He goes off on in the first one when he goes off on the pedo dad or whatever. He's like, wrong answer, fuck bag. And then he time travels back again and he says it, fuck bag. He also does it a couple times where he talks to his dad like, what am I doing wrong? And his dad's like, you can't keep messing with time, son. You're messing up the timeline. It's fucking crazy. It's like, oh wow, this is, his dad was in tune with that shit. Evan awakes in a college dorm room where Lenny is his roommate. As a test, he asks where Kaylee is, to which Lenny responds, who's Kaylee? Satisfied that his friend's futures are secure, Evan burns his journals and videos to avoid altering the timeline ever again. 8 years later in New York City, Evan exits an office building and passes Kaylee on the street. Despite a brief look towards each other, they both keep walking. Very beautiful ending. There is a director's cut. Let's talk about the director's cut. Um, there is a scene in the director's cut. He goes on like a date with his mom. They go out to dinner, and afterwards, he's like, "Hey, didn't you have like a bunch of miscarriages?" And she's like, "Yeah, they all like suffocate in the womb, whatever." Blah blah blah. Weird line, very out of place. Like, what is going on here? I was like, "Yeah, that is out of place." I wonder why I can't remember the scene. It's the director's cut. So if that scene pops up and you're watching the movie, you're watching the director's cut, and you're like, "Oh, it's about to be weird." It's a really weird ending. With his brain terribly damaged and aware that he is committed to a psychiatric facility where he will lose access to his time travel ability, so it's pretty similar to the other ending. Evan makes a desperate attempt to change the timeline by watching a family video which shows his mother just before she was about to give birth to Evan. Evan travels back to that moment and strangles himself in the womb with his umbilical cord so as to prevent the multi-generational curse from continuing. Consistent with the added scene where a psychic palm reader tells Evan you have no lifeline, that he does not belong to this world. And that's weird too. Kaylee is then seen as a child in the new timeline, having chosen to live with her mother instead of her father. And a montage suggests that the lives of their childhood actors have become loving and less tragic. So, sacrificed. Oh my god. There's 4 different endings? The happy ending alternative shows that Evan and Kaylee stop on the sidewalk when they cross paths. They introduce themselves and Evan asks her out for coffee. So these were shot, but I don't think, maybe it might be on there. Except after this time, Evan, after hesitating, turns and follows Kaylee. This ending was utilized in the film's novelization, written by James Swallow and published by Black Flame. Yeah, that shit's so fucked. So this had 2 sequels, I believe. Just 2. We will talk about the Butterfly Effect 2. I have not seen the Butterfly Effect 3, but we'll talk about the second one next week. I don't think anything can top the original, which is still a pretty, like, okay film at best, you know. You guys have a good one. Take care.